Hi everyone, this is Jack from Maths Forge, and in today's lesson we're going to be doing completing the square. So let's take a look at our first example. Here we're being asked to write x squared plus 10x minus 10 in the form x plus a bracket squared plus b. So how you complete the square is as follows. You first begin by writing a single pair of brackets, and then you put a squared on the outside. How you know what goes into the brackets is by reading the quadratic expression above here. So we have an x squared here, so into the bracket goes an x. And then we have a plus 10x. Now, instead of plus 10x, you're only going to write half of the number in front of the x. So half of this coefficient of x here. So instead of plus 10, we're going to put plus 5. Now, what goes outside of the bracket is always going to be a minus symbol. And then this number here squared. So this 5 here squared. And then last but not least, this minus 10 at the very end, you bring it down and attach it at the end like this. And so all that's really left to do is to simplify this part here. So we're going to have x plus 5 squared. And then 5 squared is 25, so minus 25. And then we have a minus 10. And then, of course, we have x plus 5 squared. Minus 25 minus 10 gives us minus 35. And there we have it. We have written the expression x squared plus 10x minus 10 in the form of x plus a squared plus b. And, of course, b is a negative number in this case. And if we check our answer, there it is. So I'll just very quickly go over that one more time. When you're completing the square, you are expected to write a normal quadratic expression in this form here. And how that's done is by writing a single pair of brackets, putting a square on the outside. Instead of an x squared, you put an x, and then half of this number in front of the x, which is plus 5 in this case. On the outside of the bracket, you then subtract that number to the right of the bracket, squared, and then you bring down the final constant next to it. Simplify, and you should have your final answer. Now let's do a 2-star example. So here we're being asked to write x squared minus 7x minus 2 in the form of x plus a squared plus b. So we're being asked to complete the square on this expression here. So we'll start off as we have done for the 1-star example, a single pair of brackets with a square, and then we're going to have x and then half of minus 7. Well, half of minus 7 is minus 3.5. But I'm going to leave it as a fraction because it's easier to work with. So I'm going to have minus 7 over 2. So half of 7 can be written as 7 over 2. I'm then going to subtract, always subtract, this number here squared, 7 over 2 squared. I'm then going to bring down the minus 2. And now let's begin to simplify. So we have x minus 7 over 2 squared, and then we're going to have minus 7 over 2 in brackets squared. So the squared is going to hit the numerator and the denominator, giving us 49 over 4. And then we have minus 2 at the end. Now this 2 can be written as a fraction over 4. So this 2 is actually just 2 over 1. And if we get the denominator to be a 4, we times it by 4 and times the numerator by 4, which gives us 8 over 4. And the reason you want to get it to have a denominator of 4 is so you can go ahead and actually simplify the 49 over 4 with this number here. So our next line is going to be x minus 7 over 2. That part's not changing. Squared minus 49 over 4 minus 8 over 4. And now that we have a common denominator, we can just go ahead and subtract them. So minus 49 minus 8 is going to give us minus 57. So this is going to look like this, x minus 7 over 2 squared minus 57 over 4. Now, all of our fractions are improper, and that is not in its simplest form. So we're going to convert them to mixed fractions, and that should be our final answer. So converting this line here to mixed fractions, we get the following. X minus 3 and 1 over 2. Of course, 7 over 2 is 3.5 as a mixed fraction. Squared minus 14 and 1 over 4, which is 57 over 4 as a mixed fraction. And this should be our answer in its simplest form. So if we check our answer, there it is. Now we'll do a 3-star example. This time you can see that x squared has a coefficient. It has a number in front of it greater than 1. So completing the square for this looks slightly different. You have an extra number on the outside of the bracket once you've completed the square. So let's see how to approach this. The first step I like to do is to factor the number in front of the x squared out of the first two. So we're going to have 2 brackets x squared plus 5x, close brackets, minus 8. So as you can see, I factorized the 2 out of the first 2 terms. The next step is to complete the square on the terms inside of the bracket. So this is what this looks like. 2 big square bracket, and then I'm going to do a curved bracket. The reason I'm using a square bracket is to distinguish it from the curved bracket. And then we're going to have the completed square of this, which is going to be x plus 5 over 2 squared minus 5 over 2 squared, and then close square bracket. And then we have the minus 8 sitting on the outside, which hasn't been touched. Now we can multiply our 2 again into the square brackets. We'll end up with 2x plus 5 over 2 squared minus 2 5 over 2 squared minus 8. And now if we simplify, we get the following: 2x plus 5 over 2 squared minus, I'm going to do the power first, so it's going to be 5 squared and 2 squared, the denominator 2 squared, so it's going to be 25 over 4. 25 over 4. And then we have minus 8. Now, this 2 is going to multiply with the 25 to give us 50 over 4. So our next line, which I'm going to begin writing up here, is going to be 2x plus 5 over 2 squared minus 50 over 4 minus 8. Now, since this 50 has a denominator of 4, we have to get this 8 to have a denominator of 4. And this 8, don't forget, can be written as 8 over 1. So if we times the denominator by 4, we have to do the same to the numerator. And this is now going to give us 32 over 4. So our next line is going to be 2 brackets x plus 5 over 2 squared minus 50 over 4 minus 32 over 4. And now we can go ahead and simplify these fractions because they have the same denominator. Minus 50 minus 32 is going to give us minus 82. So it's going to be 2x brackets plus 5 over 2 squared minus 82 over 4. Now, all of our fractions are improper fractions, so let's go ahead and change them to mixed numbers. And it's going to give us the following: 2x plus 2½ squared minus 20 and 1 over 2. And this should be our final answer in its simplest form. So if we go ahead and check our answer, there it is. And that's it for the lesson on completing the square. Just be careful with the 3-star and 2-star examples when you're dealing with fractions. Take your time and practice as many questions as you can. You will definitely get better at completing the square with more practice.